successful and earn their high school diploma. You know, there's research has an undeniable relationship between student achievement and the quality of students' lives after graduation. So I commend the board on taking on this challenge and focusing on student achievement. In looking at the Ohio School Boards Association website, they have a wonderful section called Leading Our Learners. And they focus on what school boards can do to be very effective. And there's 6 broad areas. One of them is accountability. And President Smith has actually touched on accountability already tonight. The second area is board policy and student achievement. The third area is community engagement. A fourth area is public school advocacy. A fifth area, relationships between your board and superintendent and how important those are. And then a final area is vision. I developed a brief outline for you as a board to follow tonight. And again, this outline, I will not be offended if you deviate entirely from the outline. If you want to follow the outline page by page, that's fine. It is purely to give you starting points to engage in discussion that focus on student achievement. And again, I want to set the stage. The expectation is not to have goals or strategies developed at the end of this work session. This is going to be a fluid, ongoing project over a few meetings that you as a board should work on. And hopefully within the next 2 to 3 months, you've got some goals developed. And again, your administrative team can be a key piece in all this. They can help you out a little bit. Whatever data you need, whatever questions you have that maybe you need answers to, we can step in and help. At the end of all this, the goals that you establish, there's an old saying, boards of education answer the what. What is it we're going to do? Administration does the how. How do we get it done? So with that in mind, I'm going to turn it back over to President Smith. You guys pick and choose where you want to start. The document's pretty inclusive. I mean, it's an outline of those 6 broad areas. If you want to take a deeper dive into an area that you think is very pertinent, then get on their website, take a look at it. It's very, very good stuff. It's research-based, it's best practice. In short, it's really good stuff that you can use as a board to be a more effective board and to really help student achievement.
Thank you, Jeff. Did I had sent that the link for you to everybody when I reviewed what we were going to be doing tonight. Did anybody have a chance to look at it ahead of time? Okay, that's okay. Jackie said she saw it and she ran it off, but she hadn't a chance to look it over. What I thought we would do within our session tonight is, first of all, begin as a discussion amongst all of us, what we see our needs to be. What do you think our strengths are, and what do you think our weaknesses are? Let's see if we can identify. I'm going to move this away from Jackie. I'm going to move you a little bit away from the computer so I don't get a backlog. What do we see as, let's say, 3 major strengths of TCS? What would we identify as that, as those being? And anybody can chime in. What do you think is, not necessarily of the board, but of the school? What do you think is our strength as a school?
I would say trying to accommodate our kids as best as we possibly can, along with complying with ODE.
Okay, very good. Very good. So accommodating kids along with complying with ODE. Anybody else? What do you think is a strength that we have?
I haven't been on the board that long, but what I think is that this might be the last chance for a lot of these students, because probably a lot of the other schools would not tolerate. And I think it's good that these kids have another option so that they aren't completely just forgotten.
Very good. So we're considered to be possibly the last chance or the last opportunity for kids to acquire an education. And because of that, maybe our programs have to reflect that. What would be another strength?
I would say that since colleges are moving more to a on-demand curriculum, that it actually is a benefit to some kids that, you know, may not thrive in a traditional school setting, but they'll definitely develop the skills of self-discipline to succeed in a lot of the online college opportunities that are out there now.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Anybody else have anything else to add? So we've got we're accommodating to students while complying with ODE. We're a last chance, and our programs need to reflect those opportunities for students. And really our online demand as far as curriculum goes is somewhat futuristic for students as they enter other educational programs. Anything else as a strength?
One thing that we try to focus on is the personal connection and relationships between the teacher and the student and the parent, that connection from school to home. And I think that's a strength of ours and an area we want to continue to emphasize moving forward.
Good. So personal connection, but not just with the student, but with their families as well. Okay, anything else?
I think our ability just to be flexible in on which way we lean one way or the other. Dave says, online curriculum, and then we still have that personal, those personal connections. So it's as much as they need one way or the other. If they're completely fine doing everything online, then the flexibility to allow a student to do that versus someone that may need a little bit more one-on-one time or a little bit of encouragement or whatever that looks like with an actual person, which I think is huge.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
I would also say, and I'm sorry if I'm talking too much, I'm not a board member, but
No. It's for everybody.
I think our building is a huge attraction as well. It's very modern. It's very clean. It's just a beautiful environment.
I would agree, Dave. It is. And when the outside doesn't nearly tell enough of the story, does it? But when you come inside, you really begin to understand what TCS can be. It just, I don't know, projects possibilities, I guess, just by the building itself. All right, so having identified those strengths, and I'm hoping other strengths may come about, when we think about those factors, what I'd like to think about first is actually vision, which is the last thing that Jeff mentioned. Is let's ask ourselves a question, and as we answer this question over the next couple of months, maybe we'll actually develop a strategic plan for Townsend and for the board that we have not had in several years, actually, because we've been so busy with all these other issues and problems. And that question is, what do we hope to become? What as a school, as a board, do we hope to become? Well, one thing that I hope we can become is more effective as communicators. We had some issues today where we were dealing with things, and a lot of it had to do with communication. So one thing I hope we can become is, I hope we can become a school that has effective channels of communication and that those work. So I'm going to throw that one in. Okay. What else was your vision? What do you hope we can become? And Ryan and Jeff, they're dealing with staff, and maybe Mike and David too. You might even be able to reflect what we hope what our teachers might state as what they hope we become.
I hope that we can become something sustainable. You know, I mean, it's getting old year after year. We have to comply with this, comply with that. Something that is concrete that we can go year to year. I know that's hard for us, but it's just, I guess that's the biggest thing to work towards. I know that we're working towards it right now. Ryan and Jeff and Mike well, we all are, but is just something that we all, or, you know, the teachers year to year, we kind of know what we're going to do, the students year to year. I mean, something that we can get and it's going to work for the students, because it has to be different than what traditional school is. And because it doesn't work there. So just something, I guess, sustainable and something concrete that we can, you know, move forward with is, you know, what I feel.
Very good.
Yeah.
And I agree totally with that, Kent. Anybody else? Ryan?
In line with what Kent's saying there about being sustainable, having the model that we can operate consistently in a consistent manner. We've had to tweak and change every year, everything we're doing, because we're so focused on the compliance piece and the finance piece. It'd be nice to get away from that eventually, where we can, you know, focus on a consistent operation and focus on getting students, you know, not only to the finish line with their high school diploma, but also more career focused moving forward as well.
And could I add that as another target, maybe as another wish,
More
is to
career
be able to, to be able to provide more, how did you say that, Ryan?
More of a career focus.
Yeah.
In addition to earning their high school diploma.
Very good. Anybody else?
I might be going out on a limb here, but I really think that we should make an effort to establish ourselves in the community of schools in our area, because we're kind of shunned by the other public schools in the area. And Gene, that might involve you and Ryan actually going and meeting maybe with the board president up at North Point and the director there, and just, you know, having a powwow with them and saying, look, you know, we serve kids just like St. Mary's Central Catholic does, just like St. Paul, you know, Norwalk Catholic does, and, you know, they take kids from schools too. You know, why do you service them and you won't work with us? Because they have a lot of services that we could benefit from.
No, I agree, David. And I think that that's where Ed Kirk can be very helpful to us too, because he's very well established in the circle of superintendents and things, and can maybe create some inroads. Margaretta, really, when Ed left, we had a series of superintendents that really could not do that for us. They supported Townsend, but they couldn't make those inroads the way I think Ed might be able to. Anyway, that's my perception. And along with that, David, what we had as a goal, maybe, this was a long time ago, we were trying to establish partnerships with universities so that what we're doing is publishable and becomes more recognized within the educational community through publications and through data-driven research that we do here at TCS. And that would be wonderful if, in my mind, I enjoy that. I think that kind of involvement with academia may help establish us a little bit more in the community also.
Yeah, we're missing out on a lot of professional development that other schools are privy to that are part of North Point that our teachers could definitely benefit from.
Yeah, I agree. Jackie?
Gene, along with the suggestion that he just made, would it be possible to maybe invite them down where they could see our facility, to see how nice it is?
Yes, that may be more possible than it was in the past.
I can't hear you.
I said, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. I said that may be more possible than it was in the past because the superintendent that we had was not really able to establish those relationships, that they would not come. I think maybe, Mike, you might remember, did we have one or two superintendents or educators from outside of TCS come and visit, and that numerous
I think-
invitations?
Yeah, I think I know of one. That person brought a student to enroll with us because they had heard some good things. And I don't know why Monroeville jumps out to me, but I wanted to say it was Monroeville. But yeah, it's been a struggle in the past to get anybody. A lot of times it comes down to finances. You know, the way that we're funded, they look at their balance sheet and they say, man, we're sending an awful lot of money to Townsend. You know, that's kind of what it comes down to. Sadly, it comes down to money. But yeah, we've had one, maybe two superintendents come in the building. And like I said, the one actually brought a student to enroll with us because they had heard that we, could service that student better than they could. So,
Yeah, if I could
That actually was Monroeville.
yeah,
Okay.
I thought it was.
If I could
Jackie,
chime in on
what?
this one here. Yeah, like you said, the principal at Monroeville, his nephew did come to us, but also the superintendent at Perkins currently, he also referred a student to us as well. So the schools are referring some students, and that's an area moving forward that I do want to continue to work on improving is our community relations with other stakeholders and those outside of our organization too. Improving with maybe getting a relationship there down the road with the EFC, which might take some time. Ed Kurt and I have talked about that. The JVSs, the ESCs, and so forth. I will say that the SST2 has been extremely helpful with professional development. They have been good to us, but the state multiple times has referred us to work with the ESC or our local ESC, and that's always been an issue trying to get that relationship. So moving forward, I think with Ed Kurt's help, that's something that we can work on improving down the road.
Mhm. And I'm a talker, so I don't mind, David. I can do that. Anybody else? Okay, so as we think about then our strengths and we think about what we want to become. And Ryan, are you still the co-host, Ryan?
No, David has the hosting rights. back.
Okay, Dave, you're back as the co-host. So I don't know if you can do this or if Ryan wants to do this to share a screen. And let's just write down a couple of these ideas as far as vision goes so that we can share and everybody can see them.
Let me see if I can. Can you guys see my screen right now? Email?
No.
No?
Hang on, Ryan. I'm going to give you co-host. Whoops. There we go.
There we go. All right. And Jackie, can you see that screen?
There's all your
Okay.
email, Ryan.
What screen do you see right now? My email?
Yeah.
'Cause I just clicked on something and lost everything. Okay. All right, so just bring up a document.
Yeah, just bring up a document. That'd be great. And just make the font large. So what I'd like you to write down is communication, effective communication, or effective in communication. And we have sustainable after that. We want to become able to operate with a model consistently over time. We want to provide a career focus. And we want to become better established in a positive vein with the educational community and the community at large. And if you could make that larger then, Ryan, when you finish so that we could read it more easily.
Does that match what you said?
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, that's fine. It just gives us an idea. All right, so as we look at this and we think about how we can get to that point, let's say these are all the things we want to become, we want to become. And we look at policies that we have or don't have that allow that to happen. What would they be? So when it comes to communication, for example, what policies do we have in place or do we need so that communication can become effective? And when I think of policies, I think of even systems within our school that allow us to have effective communication. Now, the obvious ones are Zoom meetings and emails. We have telephones, systems. So those are the obvious kinds of things. What other sorts of things or policies or practices do we need so that we can communicate more effectively? I'm going to leave that one there because I really want to hit Kent's vision about sustainability. So let's go down to another section, Ryan. We'll come back to bullet things about communicating more effectively. Let's go down to sustainability. What is preventing us from being sustainable right now?
ODE.
Yep. Yep. ODE, definitely. Those stipulations and requirements that they constantly push on us. So, ODE, let's just list ODE or whatever, Ryan, just ODE. What are other obstacles that interfere with us being sustainable?
Another thing I think would be like going from our blended of pencil and paper to internet kind of, a little bit, and then back to a little bit of pencil and paper, and then trying to get the kids into the building now 3 days a week or whatever, we have to get them. I think, something like that, that's what's not consistent, I think, to be sustainable.
Right. And I would frame that as student engagement, maybe, because their engagement is reflected in our attendance numbers. Would people agree with that? Okay. So student engagement. Okay, what else is preventing us from being sustainable?
Well, Ryan kind of already put it, but obviously we know funding or lack of funding as far as paybacks and things go. I think we're on the right track for that personally. I mean, with this agreement and the percentages, obviously we've talked about that a lot, is huge, but it's still an issue. It's still
okay. So next to funding, Ryan, how about if you add paybacks? Okay, what else would you see as obstacles to us being sustainable?
I think one of the issues you're gonna have to look at is to be, regardless of what you decide, you're gonna have to be patient. There's gonna be highs and lows, there's gonna be peaks and valleys. And it's kind of like people that buy stocks, and they buy it when, and then they sell it when it starts to go down, that peak and valley. I think the district has done a lot of research. They've looked at a lot of things. And the direction they're headed, I think, is a good direction. But I just would implore the powers to be next year to make sure that you've given adequate patience to the chosen instructional models, and give it time. It's akin to taking candy from a baby. A baby doesn't miss candy unless it's had it. And we've got some students, they know how it was, and they're going to miss that. And you're probably going to hear about that. But as new students come on board that haven't seen the old model, they don't miss it because they've never experienced it. And I think time itself will work to your advantage, and just be patient and give it enough time. Now that's not saying be stubborn and bullheaded. Don't, I know I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here, but don't be afraid to pull the trigger for change if it needs to be, but just don't panic. Give it time, be patient, and let things take their course. Make sure we've given it ample time to make sure it's working.
Right, good. I agree, Jeff. So Ryan will add, give ample time to changes.
I will say that we had a second meeting this week with West Central Academy in Lima. We met with their person that does like the EMIS side of things, and to get a better idea of how they track attendance and report attendance in EMIS. And it was extremely helpful for us, first of all, as for planning how to track attendance for next year. And also they do get fully funded for scheduled seat time. And that's what they report to EMIS. So even if a student's absent, they're not reporting the actual seat time for the 13-hour portion. They're reporting the scheduled seat time. So there's 50% funding that they're getting automatically. Now we are providing busing and actually making more efforts than they are currently to try to get those students into the building. So I honestly feel very confident that we're going to get that 50% funding, and then we're going to have to work hard on the other 50%, which is outside of the building. I just want to make sure everybody understands that.
Well, that would be good.
That is promised. It is promised.
So maybe what we need to do is add a bullet there that something that would help us would be attendance. How would we say it? Maximizing the tracking of student attendance.
What you're really saying is you're wanting to be funded based on enrollment, not by performance or attendance. They've got, the state of Ohio has policy, administrative guidelines and rules on student attendance that we follow. So that just goes without saying. But what you're hoping to become is a school that's funded based on enrollment.
Okay, so in looking at these items then to become more sustainable, Brian, can you move the give ample time up so we don't have that big gap?
Well, it's on a different page here.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay, I couldn't see that it was on a different page. I'm sorry. Oh, I see the page marker.
There we go.
Okay, sorry about that. That's fine. In looking at these then, these are some things we can continue to explore and decide as far as what policies and things we might look at so that this these things can happen. All right, let's look then at operating with a model, operating consistently with a model. If we want to become, if we want to have a model that we've used consistently over time, how can we use a model consistently over time might be the question. Then I think, I suspect Kent's going to say, well, one of the obstacles to that is ODE. So we'll, did I read your mind, Kent?
Kind of, but I knew you were going to say that.
Okay, what are the other obstacles that we might face using the model consistently, using the same model over time?
Actually, another thing that could go along with the ODE thing would be not living in the gray area. We've lived in the gray area for years and years of, with the wording and the rules and laws and policies. So I guess it'd be not living in the gray area, living with something that would go with ODE's guidelines.
Very good.
That look good.
Yeah, that's good.
I think we have to also provide a model that is conducive to student learning and success.
Yes. Okay, what else?
I'm kind of a traditional when it comes to education, but I understand what the mission of Townsend is, and I think we need to keep a career focus to help move these kids to either college or the military or to get into the workforce. Somebody already mention that, or?
We did, but I think it's suitable here too, Ryan. So go back to where you were, because I think we can fit it in down there with how can we use a model consistently over time. As we use the model that's conducive to student learning and success, we have to incorporate not just the academics, but also that career focus. So I think that's part of that. Okay, what else? I guess what I would throw in there is, again, we need that efficacy that the program that we're doing is right. So I'd like to see us prove that the model that we're using is right. And develop literature and be engaged in study with other institutions of higher learning that will support the model. We say that it's good. We have a high graduation rate, but what else? What else could we? I think efficacy is something that we need to increase on. And really getting back to student achievement, how, I guess the things that we have, what do we want to become? We want to become a school rather, that has a high graduation rate. We don't really have, we have a higher graduation rate than a lot of credit and dropout recovery schools, but is it high enough? Can we do better with that? So I guess I would hope that the model would increase or enhance student achievement.
Well, I think if we can get the students into the building as much as we think we can, or we're trying to, I think that that's going to go hand in hand with that.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of have my doubts on how we're going to get them in there, but you know what? I hope we can. I have faith in Ryan and Mike and Jeff that they can do it. So,
Right. I do too. I do too. All right. So as we've looked at then sustainability, we looked at the model, and we kind of tied in with the career focus. I think the accommodating of kids, we said that that is a strength. Does that also need to be something, we know we are there, but are we there enough? Have we reached our full potential in terms of being that last chance for kids, to being the one that can accommodate their needs? What do you think? Hey, Dora.
Hey, Jen, I'm sorry, but I had to go I was getting a breathing treatment.
Oh, Dora. Oh my gosh. Well, we're just going to finish up here just in time for the board meeting, and I'll fill you in on these other things.
Okay, thank you, dear.
You're welcome. Go back to the top, Ryan. And we talked about what we hope to become. Let's revisit that before our 5 o'clock hour rolls around. Is there anything else? We started to work on sustainability. We talked about operating with a model consistently. Is there anything else in talking about those things now that we want to become? And I guess I would wonder if we shouldn't add to that a supporter of high school student achievement, of higher student achievement, and not be satisfied with where we're at.
I agree with that.
Okay. So let's, I think that let's go down, Ryan, and how can we enhance career focus? Let's talk about that when we have just a few minutes before 5 o'clock. And then I'll have Ryan share these notes with all of us so we can add things or refine them in future meetings. So Ryan, the question is how we can increase our emphasis on career focus.
I'm going to finish typing one here and explain it.
Yeah, Vermillion uses that. I'm familiar with U-Science with the student that I'm working with at Vermillion High School.
Okay, so the one committee I'm a part of is there's an initiative that's been building here over the last couple of years. It's called Firelands Forward Workforce Development Initiative. And the meetings initially were taking place at BGSU Firelands. And I joined a couple of years ago the subgroup for education because I thought this is something that pertained to Townsend that would be very good for our kids, getting our students these connections to businesses and careers out there where there's a need in our local area. And what this initiative is trying to do is trying to bring businesses, trying to bring schools, it's trying to bring the students, trying to bring all of the key pieces to the table here and find a way to piece the puzzle together and connect students to the workforce to fill those gaps that we have in our local area. So we actually just met this past Friday, and actually I had a phone call from Alex Jones, who's one of the leaders with the Firelands Forward initiative today. He called me to talk further about the youth science testing and the schools in the area. What we're looking at all doing is using the youth science aptitude test to kind of gain students' interests in what career fields that they are interested in going into. And we can work that into the student success plan for each of these students, which in the past we've called the ILP, individual learning plan. But I kind of like the state's terminology moving forward, student success plan, they call it. And the recent model that Tara, Ashley, and myself have been working on, we're modeling it after the state's plan that's already in place. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel too much. We're working from that first and then maybe tweaking a few things there to gear it towards TCS. And anyways, getting back to this youth science test, the students take this test. It gives us an idea of what careers they're interested in. Firelands Forward initiative then takes the businesses, and what I was suggesting to Alex today is that the businesses identify their needs and what's the best way to get connected with students. Is it through guided tours? Is it through job shadowing? Is it through something more thorough study program? And then they pool those together on the website, the Firelands Forward website, and the school then have access to all those businesses and those opportunities for kids. And for each individual kid, they can plug the student with the right career field or the right opportunity and make those connections there. So that's something that's in the works. This is a big thing. And this is one way that we can get our kids that career focus.
And that sounds very exciting. As Jeff alluded to at the beginning of our meeting, we knew we weren't going to get through everything today, but we got a good start in the amount of time that we worked, I think. Let's, Ryan and Jeff and I will work at putting these things together into a format to have you think more about it. And we'll revisit it again as we come across and come up with things. It's also something that might be a discussion for staff at some point. You have a lot of things that you're talking about right now, but we might want to have some guided discussions in time over that as well. So at this point in time, I thank you for your participation and willingness to pursue this. And I would ask that for a motion to adjourn at this time so we can move into our regular meeting.
I move.
Okay. I'm sorry, was it Israel or Kent? Kent and Jackie second. Is that okay, Jackie? Because you had moved also. Very good. All right, we'll have the roll.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Yes, she said, sorry.
That's all right. Mrs. Grant? Dora, are you there?
Yes.
Mr. Palomo?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes. Very good. And now we move on. And I would like to call the regular meeting of Townsend Community Schools to order, please. Do I have the roll, Mike?
Mr. Edwards?
Here.
Mrs. Grant?
Here.
Mr. Palomo?
Here.
Mrs. Lee?
Present.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes, here. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented? And Jeff, do we need any, we don't need any additions? Okay, so is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I move.
Second.
Moved by Kent, seconded by Israel. We'll have the roll, please.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mr. Palomo,
Yes.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mrs. Salee,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes. Dora, thank you for being on. It's obvious that you are not feeling well. So thank you for hanging in there with us, girl. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right. I don't know that I see anyone representing Margaretta. Did we have anyone who, oh, I'm sorry. We need to approve the minutes. I jumped ahead. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of our January 19th meeting as presented? Jackie moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dora. We'll have the roll, please.
Mrs. Salee,
Yes.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Palomo,
Yes.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes. Now, getting back to my other question, did we have a sponsor that was going to be present tonight, Jeff or Ryan?
Steve is texting me right now. He's on the Google Meet link. He's going to switch over to Zoom.
Okay, very good. We'll give him. Good evening, Adam.
Hi there.
Well, while we're waiting for Steve to join us, he may be in Google. Oh, there he is. Hey, Steve. Steve, you can unmute because it's over to you. Hi, we can't hear you, Steve.
I have problems because my daughter's got the hoverboard hooked up. So let me take the Bluetooth off.
Okay,
Hang on 1 second.
all right.
All right, I think that's better.
Very good, very good. All right, Steve, we're ready for the sponsors report.
Hey, Mara, turn off that hoverboard.
I'm going to put that in the minutes, Steve.
All right.
You need to unmute yourself.
Just don't ever forget, folks, kids are the reason we're doing all this. I love it.
There you go.
His camera's making me dizzy.
Okay, Steve, can you unmute now?
Dean, I can barely hear everybody, so I'm going to get some headphones here.
Okay.
Bring the hoverboard in there. You'll see
It's off
it's
of
fine.
Hear you now.
Just bring the hoverboard in.
Yeah, stand on it, and I think that's how it works.
Steve, while you're working with earphones, we're going to go on and I'll come back to your report.
Got some there.
He's got
There
some.
you got some. Okay. There we go.
Can you hear me, everybody?
Yes.
I don't know what the deal was. Never had to use headphones before, but I apologize. You probably all were talking to me, and I'm sorry.
It's okay, Steve. It's okay. We have proceeded to the meetings to the point of the sponsor report. So I'll let you go ahead.
Oh, okay, great. Sorry, everybody, again. Basically, sponsor report is as follows. We met just last week, and we talked about the blending learning update and how that plan was going. And I know that there's been meetings. Did you guys meet this morning then as well? Because I know there was a scheduled meeting.
Yes.
That's
We did,
awesome. And then we talked about contract completion. We talked about revenue opportunities through CTE and CARES Act. And then we talked about student state testing, which after that meeting on last Thursday, I had a conference call with ODE and I got more information on testing. And then we finished with trying to figure out how we're going to collect data this year for the quality practices upload, because typically our grade card has provided, I'd say probably 75% of that information. And this year, the grade card is very slim because of the way things ended with COVID last year. So we're trying to kind of figure out what data we can use. And some of that data is just simple stuff like enrollment figures and so forth. And I'll be working with Jeff and Ryan on that. But then there was the map testing, the growth chart, and just seeing where things were at that I had to submit. So some of that didn't occur last year. So we're trying to figure it out and kind of have some good ideas going forward here. So questions?
Are you still preparing a written? We were meeting in person.
Yes, you were cutting out on that. I think you asked if we met in person.
When we met in person, you had a written board or sponsor report. Are you still required to prepare those?
Yeah, we actually have our second site visit coming this Thursday, the 18th. So we will have that in 2 days. This one is the compliance visit. So basically what we'll have to do is, there were like 5 items, I believe it was, something of that range that was on the corrective action plan. And we'll have to make sure we're seeing necessary steps going forward from TCS with those corrective action plans.
Okay.
Or those items in that corrective action plan that were needing to be corrected.
Okay, good. I guess I would just ask that in March, if you could submit a written sponsor report to us also, just so I can get that out to all the board members, or we can get that out to all the board members before that meeting. That would kind of help, I think, the board as a whole understand a little bit more how you're doing it, because that was always so good. You had things we had completed and things that had to be done. It was very helpful.
Yeah, we still do that. That agenda gets shared with the 3 that are in the meeting from TCS. So I wrote that down. Now, do you want me to send that to you prior to the meeting? So like we meet March 11th. So I usually send that out sometime during the day on March 10th. Do you want all board members included as well?
Not necessarily, but okay. You could include a report after that meeting to the board and to your board as well, as far as
what I used to submit to you guys for your packet was the agenda. So I didn't do anything as far as a written report afterwards.
I see.
Yeah, it was just the agenda of what we had to discuss that month.
Okay, I'll chat with Jeff about it and see what he thinks we ought to have and get back to you on that then.
Okay, yeah, because I started to do a written report, but then in talking with me being new last year and talking with people, our council and TCS, the written report really wasn't needed. It was just the agenda showing that we met, signed agenda and so forth.
I see.
So that kind of went by the wayside.
By the wayside. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll chat about it.
Yeah, let me know.
Okay. Is there anything else or any questions for Steve? Are there any questions rather? All right, we'll move on to the board member and liaison reports. And as the president's report, I'd like to combine that with the legislative report. And I've asked Adam to be here to talk after I finish. I know I sent to all the board members a synopsis of the meetings that we had, Ryan, Jeff, Ryan and I and Adam had with Senator Gavarone and with DJ Swearingen, Representative Swearingen. I gave you an idea of what was discussed and how those meetings went. And as an outgrowth of that, then we discussed with them, we were actually posed the questions, what obstacles continue? Because the last time they were with us was in 2019, when Pete was trying to rally legislative support along with the support of the State Board of Education as we moved into a settlement agreement with the Ohio Department of Education. So a lot had happened. We gave them a synopsis. We gave them just a review of the highlights of things that had changed, what was going well, that we were working to establish positive relations with ODE and so forth. But they posed Ryan and I with the question of what obstacles remain. And one of those obstacles was the fact that we're having to meet students according to our agreement with ODE and blended learning model. Students need to have 13 hours of seat time, but having that 13 hours of instruction at the TC building site is difficult because the students are coming in all over. Their hours are sporadic and erratic on certain days. And that Ryan and I viewed that as one of the obstacles, along with funding issues and the fact that students' attendance is required for funding as opposed to something performance-based like numbers of credits earned. So after those meetings with the legislators, we then had a Zoom meeting with Adam and Ryan and Jeff and Will Voorhees, who is the lobbyist for Dickinson and Wright that has worked with us in the past. And I'll have Adam pick up where I left off.
Sure. Thanks, Jean. And I'll try to be quick. But I think the discussion we had on that call was focused primarily on if there are obstacles in place for Townsend's model to be able to reach out to the students within the 6 counties that they can service, how can we deal with those in our legislative approach as an option? We know full well that this is something that we'll have to confer with the Department of Education about. We've already referenced the fact that we would do that, and we have every intention to do that. But essentially, in speaking with Will, we considered a project of potentially having language included in the budget bill and working collaboratively with stakeholders to ensure that if Townsend wished to have other locations in the area throughout the 6 counties where we go out to reach those at-risk kids who may not have the capacity to come to the Townsend facility for 13 hours every day, we would be able to use our resources to go do that, send our teachers there, and when students come in, they would then have that time counted as in-person attendance time. So this is, in our mind, a vital step of preserving what's been valuable about the Townsend program, but also transitioning into something that aligns with what the department would like to see in terms of more in-person learning through the blended model. And this is not a foreign concept, and it was something that was favorable. And so we proposed a project. These are usually about 6-month projects because it goes through the budget cycle. And in thinking through what the costs of these usually are, because it's a lot of time for Will. Thankfully, Will, not me. I'm not a lobbyist, thankfully. But I think in terms of the engagement that would need to occur, we proposed a 6-month engagement project to pursue this legislation and work with relevant agencies and also with the sponsor as well to try to get this into law to help your transition into a blended model. Now, the cost of that would be, and in my mind, I think the best way to do this is to cap the fees so that they don't exceed a certain amount. And so in this case, it would be $6,500 per month. That's a cap. So let's say a month and a half from now, this idea is dead in the water. You're not going to have to keep paying $6,500 a month. But let's say it takes a whole lot of work to figure out exactly whether this can get in or not, and you end up going over 6,500, it would be capped at that $6,500 amount. So it's still billable hours, but it's capped. So let me pause to see. Hopefully I hit everything there, but I'll take any questions or concerns.
I need to let the board know that Jeff and I had communication today with Margretta, and as a sponsor, they really are hesitant about moving forward in this kind of direction, especially because they're hoping that it doesn't interfere with our building positive relations with the Ohio Department of Education. So Adam, how would that be addressed?
So I think we've had preliminary discussions about this idea with legislators who would be our champions. But one of the key steps is going to be to take our proposal before it's finalized and goes through the LSC and bring it to ODE and just have a discussion with them and say, okay, this is what we'd like to see done. We're being upfront, transparent with you. And in fact, in the fall, when we spoke with them, I mentioned that this was a possibility that we would be pursuing this. And our contract, in my opinion, does allow for it. So I think the goal would be to have transparent and frank discussions with them and continue building that good relationship. I have a very good working relationship with pretty much all of the administrators involved on the ODE side, and they're going to find out about it anyway. And so I'd like them to have input on it. And if they want us to narrow this to be sure it only applies to Townsend in a pilot project setting, that's fine. If they want us to take some other considerations into account, we're happy to do that. But that would be the goal of ensuring that they have buy-in there. And then based on their response, we'll decide whether this can be pursued, continue to be pursued, or whether we need to look at some other alternatives in terms of what our transition is going to look like.
Mm-hmm. Are there any questions for Adam? I guess the other thing that I need to mention is that Ryan and Ed and Jeff have talked about having, have already had conversations with Ed about pursuing partnerships with joint vocational schools for transportation, so that our students would be bused to locations already. You know, they already, school districts around the various counties are already busing students to a central location for joint vocational schools. But that we might extend or expand that conversation to also include partnerships that would allow us to actually meet with students on site at the joint vocational schools. I'm not saying that the conversation that Adam just had would end that. It would just be added to that as another component. But I wanted to mention that that was something that was being discussed as well. I have nothing further to report under President's report of the legislative report. Is there anything under finance? Jackie, is there anything with you under finance?
No.
No, okay. Is there anything for, let me jump down to professional development. Dora, do you have anything for professional development?
There's is Ryan there?
Yes, Ryan is here.
Yeah, Dora.
I'm gonna let him tell you all, please, if that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay, Dora.
Yep. Give me one moment here.
Okay, thanks, Ryan.
Okay, so Dora and I had some communication here over the last couple of days about some professional development that's taking place. And there are some more, I think, other than this. I'm maybe missing a few things, but just some current recent PD that we've had some staff go through and some future PD that's coming up. We've had, I've been going through training on explicit instructional leadership through the SST, State Support Team, Region 2. Actually, today, this afternoon from 2 to 4 was the second of 4 days. There's 3 days this spring and 1 in August, right before the next school year starts. We have Ashley Hermes and Kristen Fallow, who's our school psychologist, who will be participating in a special education seminar on February 18th, put on by Pebble and Wagner. We have the state support team is coming to Townsend next week on February 23rd to provide our special education department with some training on effective use of ETRs and IEPs. So our entire SPED department is going through that training on the 23rd. On Monday, which was yesterday, Townsend did not have yesterday as a work day. However, Margaretta did. And Margaretta had a training day for their staff on trauma-informed care. And we had 4 staff members from Townsend that did participate in that. And that was myself, Ashley Hermes, Ken Miller, and Chris Shear. And I did share the notes, my notes from that session, along with some video links with our entire staff so that they had access to the notes from that training as well. On February 26th, we have Carrie Bernard and Karen Zirkle participating in a virtual workshop on trauma, grief, fear, and racism. Also in March, from the 22nd through the 24th, Carrie Bernard and Karen Zirkle will be participating in the National School Social Work Conference, which is a virtual conference. And March 25th, we have 4 of us who are participating with the SST in what's called One Plan meeting. And this is basically kind of a combination of the Ohio Improvement Process, the One Needs Assessment, and CCIP. And that will be myself, Mike Lumberius, Tara Kaiser, and Ashley Hermes. And then finally, this June 22nd, the state support team is putting on a training on emotional poverty with Dr. Ruby Payne. That will be held at Norwalk High School. Also, it will people will have the option of doing that training virtually. I have signed up to do that training at Norwalk High School, and we are going to try to get a few others from Townsend to be a part of that as well.
Thank you, Ryan. Are there any questions about that? And Kent, do you have anything with the sponsorship?
No, I do not. The only thing that I got was what you already touched on with them and us going, their worries about us going to the libraries. So.
Okay. All right, Israel?
Yeah, so I guess this next part is just for Michael and Barrios. With the responses that I got, we did our treasure evaluation, the board and Jeff did. And with the responses I got, Mike, we find your performance to excel in all areas. Very positive marks. The comments were all positive. Just want to remember that I think communication will need to be of utmost important throughout the next year. If you can maintain your enthusiasm, that would be great. I think you do a really good job with that. And just to create a better working relationship with the entire board. Those are the only takeaways that I had from all the evaluations that we had. So yeah, with that said, you're highly recommended by this board and Jeff. even Kent. Yep.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you. Jeff, do we need a motion to that effect?
You want a motion to do a contract? What are we asking for?
We would.
We're asking to recommend a
continued employment.
Yes.
Mike is on a 2-year contract.
You would need a motion. You would need a motion to that effect.
Okay, so is there a motion? Will someone move that we continue employment of Mike Lamberius as our treasurer with high recommendations?
I move.
Moved by Dora, is there a second? Second by Jackie. We'll have the roll, please.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mrs. Salee,
Yes.
Mr. Palomo,
Yes.
Mr. Edwards,
No, just kidding. Yes. I just want to see if you wrote no.
I'm gonna write no. Mrs. Smith.
Yes, absolutely. Very good. All right, Mike, we'll turn it over to you. Thank you, Israel.
You're welcome.
Try to share my screen here. Can everybody see that?
Good, Mike.
Is it large enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. First page here, we're looking at the reconciliation for January. We're up quite a bit for January. The one thing I do want to point out is that if you'll recall last meeting, we didn't have, we had two Margaretta invoices. We only had one bill run where I'm getting at for January. So the balance is inflated quite a bit right now. So just keep that in mind as we move forward. Check register, nothing too crazy. We did have one of the billings for the Jefferson County. They normally bill quarterly. Sometimes they'll bill semi-quarterly, but right now this is the first one I've gotten in a few months. And then the other thing I really wanted to point out was the Erie County Sheriff's Department had some outstanding invoices from March, and they had actually got a hold of Ed Kurt to get those to me. I don't know where the disconnect was. They normally were mailing those invoices, but I did go back and look and we never had paid it. So it was an outstanding invoice, but it was, almost $11,000. So I kind of wanted to point that out on the check register. Any questions on the check register? Outstanding checks. I did contact the Erie County Water Department to figure out what's going on with this one, and these should all be gone except for these Fremont City Schools in Noweka next month. Actually, they're gone already, but at the end of January they hadn't been yet. So there were some outstanding checks that are getting taken care of. Those will be gone next month. Moving on to the spreadsheet for the month. Okay, couple things. We did get casino January and August are casino revenue. So it comes in under refund of a prior year expenditure. But I think we got like 38,000 some odd dollars for casino revenue in January. So that's where you see this large increase here. As far as expenses for the month of January go, you can see we were only at 52.22%. The reason being is, like I said earlier, we only ended up the way the dates fell. And when Betty came in and ran payroll and did bills and stuff, she only actually came in one day in the month of January. The other one was on the 31st of December and then the 1st of February. So it's kind of odd. Like I say, every once in a while, we'll have a month where we have two Margaretta invoices or something. We didn't have those this month. We didn't have Jefferson Health, our insurance bill. So that's why some of this stuff is down. And that's why we see a January total of highly positive this month. There's going to be a correction next month is my point. So just keep an eye out for that. That's kind of the reason some of these numbers are down. But when we look at the yearly, we're at the end of January, you should be around 58%. So we're a little above on our expenses. I do think that we're going to see that come back to, I think that by the end of the year, the expenses will be right around 100%. I know that's a few months away, but we're a little above, but it's pretty on. Revenue is higher. We've been preaching this all year. We're actually higher in enrollments than we anticipated. It looks like we're going to continue that pattern. You can see at the end of January, we were at 617.86. And as you'll see in these next few, we actually went up about 4 or 5 FTE moving into February. So that's a good sign. There are some things that are going to happen just so everybody is aware. Well, I'll explain that on the next slide. But is there any questions on the monthly here?
Why did we lose money for career tech funding?
Career tech funding is still being worked out. There's a reporting issue. Something in Dazzle is not reporting our career tech funding. I do have confirmation that once it's fixed, it will be refunded. But at this point, there's a disconnect there with NOECA and how it's being reported, that they're taking that money back because of the way it's being reported. I do have confirmation, though, like I said, once it's figured out, we'll get that money back.
Okay. And my other question was under investment interest. On the very first sheet you show us, there is 0 investments. Does that mean that, does the very first page, does that mean that we invested 0?
Investment. So this section is tied into the system. Our investment that we have set aside is actually in a money market account at Civista, and
Okay.
it's reflected up here.
Okay.
All accounts. We're still in the process. Most of our money, as you can see, is with Civista. We do still have some with Security National Bank, and the reason is it takes time to move all of those counts over. You know, there's certain people we have direct withdrawals from, like Delta Dental is one, for instance. You can see that here in the adjustments. There's still some things that are with Security. We're slowly making those transfers over to Civista. But yeah, this is our investment account. And actually, we're going back to that spreadsheet. I guess I could mention that. It doesn't look like a lot of money, but $511 on the money market account is actually significant given the interest rates the way they are right now. We got a special rate by switching banks. So I think that's in place for 12 months. It's not a lot of money. I guess that's probably why I didn't bring too much about it up. But we are getting a better interest rate at Civista than we were Security.
Very good.
Any other questions on that? All right. This is a look forward at our February payment. The main thing I wanted to point out about February is it's where we get our second round of student wellness and success funding. So the month of February, we're getting another $177,000 as far as that goes. They have extended this. We're going to get this in future years as well. So it's something that we need to keep an eye on, something we can use for right now. Our liaisons are being funded through that. As we move forward, we can see, you know, where we want to put that money. Another thing is I brought this up last month. It was the first month that happened. These are our adjustments, and these are positive numbers. They've been negative numbers for a long time. So they are still sticking to their agreement, which is good to see. Every month I always wonder, but so far we're 2 months in and they've kept to their word. So that's good. We have positive adjustments moving forward. The month of February is pretty good. Obviously, we're looking at about $518,000. A lot of that is because of this $177,000 from student success funding. Moving forward, then, I didn't realize I did this when I scanned it. I scanned you the January. I normally try to give you the funding for the month after that. Must have got mixed up. January, we were at, you can see 617, and I have my notes right here real quick. February, this number is actually 622.45. So actually, we went up in the month of February, some FTEs, which is a good sign. We're holding enrollment. We're not withdrawing as many, it doesn't seem like at this point, and we're gaining some on top of it. That's about what I got for you, unless you guys have any questions. I will bring up, Gina mentioned earlier, the audit. The audit did kind of come and it seems like it's almost going to go quickly. It's wild. It's the quickest one I've ever been a part of. I talked to the lady who's running it yesterday. She said all the financial stuff looks good. They're worried about, not worried, they're still looking into the transition from XD to Dazzle to make sure all the information was done right. But as far as financials go with the audit, everything looks good. Nothing is finalized yet, nothing, but I thought I'd just give you an update. You know, I was talking with her, we were joking. I said, this may be the fastest audit since I've been around, at least, because she's only been working on it for about 3-4 weeks, maybe tops. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
Are there any questions for Mike? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report as submitted? Move by Israel, seconded by Jackie. We'll have the roll, please.
Mr. Palomo,
Yes.
Mrs. Salee, Mrs. Grant, Dora,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes. Jeff,
I have to,
we'll turn it over to you. Thank you, Mike.
thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. We have three resolutions that we're asking the board to consider and take action on. A is recommendation to approve the awarding of high school diplomas to the following students as so listed. B, recommendation to approve a purchase service contract between Townsend and Marty Pitcher. This is for the current school year. And we bumped it up to 300 hours. Not that we're going to use the 300, but Marty's been doing an awful lot of work for us for Dazzle. You heard Mike talk about one of the glitches with NOECA and Career Tech and all that. And Marty's in the background on some of this. So instead of just piecemealing it out, this should more than get us through the rest of the year. And again, I'll be somewhat surprised if we use the full 300 hours. But this way, it's sitting there. And as I said before, we are, Townsend, we are extremely lucky to have somebody rather locally that's in a position to help us that has this level of expertise. These people just aren't walking around anywhere. So we're very fortunate. And I've got that recommended to the board for tonight.
Jeff, could we go ahead and have the vote on those two items and then handle the third one separately?
Sure. If you want to do a motion for items A through B, and then we can do the third one separate at this time. Yes?
That would be wonderful. Thank you. Do I have a motion to accept the recommendations or approve recommendations A and B?
I'll move.
Moved by Dora. Is there a second? Second by Jackie. Any discussion? We'll have the roll, Mike.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Palumbo,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes. And I concur with Jeff about Marty Pritchard. She's wonderful.
Yeah.
We'd be lost without her.
She's pretty solid. And at $50 an hour, I'm not saying it's chump change, but that's a bargain, folks. In the EMIS world, that's not bad. Okay, item C, standalone resolution now. Recommend to approve the monthly payments of $6,500 for 6 months to Dickinson Wright for the purpose of representing Townsend and lobbying on behalf of Townsend. Said payments shall not exceed $3,900, and this is retroactive back to February 1 through July of this year, 6-month time period. Again, as Adam said earlier, the 6,500 is a cap, the 3,900 is a cap. If they use it, great. If they don't, if they the billable hours add up to more than 6,500, that's all we pay for that month. So it's kind of a hit and miss kind of structure there, but that way everybody knows what we're getting into. And then as I gave the board earlier today, the engagement letter that spelled all that out, you all have that on your email, your copy, given that will back all this up. So I recommend that to the board at this time, Madam President.
Is there a motion for action item C? And then we'll have discussion as needed. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Moved by Jackie. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Dora. And now we'll have discussion. So what are your thoughts, please?
I guess the biggest thought is, are we throwing our money away or not? If we know that they're not in favor of us going into these libraries, I mean, are we throwing our money away? So I guess I'll throw that out there.
Mm-hmm. Israel?
I don't know. I'm with Kent. I don't know if is there value in doing this? Is my biggest question. I mean, are we gonna get what we need out of it, or or, you know, is it, yeah, is it worth it, I guess, is my only question.
Mike, what was your reaction when we talked about it?
Well, it's an opportunity for sure. I've heard of opportunities in the past that have never come to fruition, but at the same time, this is very key, I think. And the way I worded it, I think, Gene, I don't know if this is what you're getting at. The way I worded it, and whether this is a good or bad way for me to personally look as a manager of the finances, is if it comes down to $39,000, we've probably already failed. To get these, for it to be a possibility, to be able to use these other facilities is going to be key, especially to getting those 13 hours. But I do understand both Kent and Israel's statement as, are we just throwing money away? Is it guaranteed? I don't think it's guaranteed by any means. I don't. I've seen this happen in the past where, you know, there's legislation coming and it's going to be so beneficial to us and it's going to happen and it doesn't happen. So I understand your reservations. I do think that it's going to be vital, I think, for Townsend's success to be able to use these other locations. Whether it works or not, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, you know, if you throw $39,000 at this, it's going to work. I'm definitely not going to say that. But, you know, if it does, it's huge.
I think today there were some conversations that I had with different people that kind of brought to light the fact that it's almost a month by month sort of thing, even though we've spread it out to 6 months, because that's probably the length of time it's going to take to approve the budget in the legislature. So that's why the 6 months is there. And assuming that this is a bill that's tacked on to the budget proposal, that's why the 6 months. I thought it was helpful to hear Adam say, look, if after we've worked on this and we go to ODE or we see that we're not really going to be moving forward with this in a couple of weeks or a month and a half, we're going to stop. So I don't think I think we have the parameters there as far as the maximum, but it could be much less than that as well. And the other thing is, Mike's right. If you read through the contract, it talks about no guarantee as far as outcomes, which how could they guarantee an outcome? They can't. But it also says we can terminate the agreement at any time. It seems to me that it's a little early to terminate the possibility. And that's just one person's opinion. I don't know, Jeff, if you have any other comments about it or not.
I've got a couple here, if I may. One of the issues, and Ryan Bone and I talked about this afternoon. I want the board to kind of digress here a little bit. I want the board to know Ryan and I talk very frequently, and the goal is for this transition to go very seamlessly for you. I think you've made a good choice. I commend you, but we do talk, we do communicate a lot. And one of the things we talked about today was this very issue. Let's take a look at what we've already talked about. You know, we're looking at trying to bus these kids from the career tech centers. And we already heard some conversation about maybe the possibility of using the career tech centers instead of libraries as our meeting place with these kids. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if Adam is still on the line or not. I don't know if he left us, but if I'm not mistaken, he did. There's some law that says that Ryan and I were both in concurrence here. We believe only 2 of the career tech centers that we've mentioned, we could legally meet with kids there. One of them, just because of the way the law works, we even if we wanted to, even if we were willing to pay for it and they wanted to, we legally can't because of the way the law is. And this is something that could be addressed in this legislation. The other 2 things I want to point out to you is timing. Timing is everything. And there are 2 key things in timing right here. One is you've got legislatures that are interested in this language. And what makes it even more interesting is you're in a budget year. You know, it's not every year, it's every other year you're going to budget year. And this is the year that you can get a lot of legislation moved. Ohio anymore, that's the year they move a lot of their legislations in the budget. And that's just the way it is. So you've got a lot of things lining up for you that I think may help you out. But again, I go back to, if we get into this 2 weeks, a month, and we start seeing some red flags, or we start seeing some things that don't look so good, we can pull out of this very quickly, and our financial exposure is very minimal at this point. So I think it's worth the start, to take a look at this, to get the ball rolling and see where it goes. If it doesn't go anywhere soon, we stop, we get out of it. But you know, it's one of those, I don't want you to have a regret. And that's what I would worry about this. So I would support the resolution, simply because I'd want to see where it goes, especially the first month or so. And if that ball keeps rolling and it's rolling in a good direction, then we can let it continue. But the minute it's not, and we think, hey, we're not getting any bang for our buck here, we're out of this. And what we can do is we can certainly give the board monthly updates on this. We can get you bi-monthly updates if you want. I'm sure that wouldn't be a problem, to let you know what how the progress is moving on that. That's up to you folks. We, as administrators, we will accommodate whatever it is you need. So if that helps you out, that's my 2 cents worth on this.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other comments?
So if we were to go into this and under the understanding for a 6-month period of time, and we decide, that, or I guess, how do we get out of it? Do we need, full board approval to pull away from this, or is this, what is the process of getting out of it? Is it easy as taking a vote, or do we have to? Is it something that goes on a little bit longer?
Right. Jackie, did you have something?
Yes, 2 things. First of all, did somebody mention 3,900 instead of 39,000?
If they did, they were wrong. It's 39,000 is the cap.
I thought I heard 3,900, but can I withdraw my motion? Can I withdraw my motion?
You can. You can.
I'd like to withdraw it.
Okay, you'd like to withdraw your approval of the motion.
Like I said, I'm not familiar enough with it, so I'd rather go with the judgment of the rest of the board members.
Okay. And let's see,
You can motion it no if she wants, or she can abstain if she wants when we vote.
So Jackie, you can stay with the motion, which allowed us to discuss it.
Okay.
And it doesn't mean that you support the motion, it just allows us to discuss it. And then you can decide in terms of your vote, either for the motion, against the motion, or abstain. Would that be acceptable?
Yes.
Okay.
Jean, could I say a word real quick?
Yeah.
The big question here, people, is will we be funded based upon actual 13-hour seat time, or will we be funded upon scheduled seat time as the FTE manual reads? And, if you asked me this a week ago, I would have said, I think that we're probably going to get funded based upon actual seat time, even though the FTE manual says that. I'll be honest, I'm kind of, in the middle here. I hear both sides of the situation, and I agree with both sides to some aspect of the discussion. The fact that West Central Academy in Lima is being funded based upon the scheduled seat time makes me feel a lot more comfortable about, I'm not comfortable about losing the libraries, but it makes me feel a little more comfortable about our funding situation being based upon the scheduled seat time. But again, I totally understand if the board wants to move forward with pursuing legislation, but I also understand the reservations from the expense side. So I just wanted to throw that out there, because I think the big question is, are we being funded based upon seat time, scheduled seat time, like West Central Academy is, which is sponsored by ODE's Office of Sponsorship, or are we going to be funded based upon actual seat time that takes place.
Right. And getting back to your question, Israel, according to the contract that would be established with Dickinson and Wright, we can terminate it at any time. And that can be done through, I would prefer as a president that it be done through a vote of the board and translated to Dickinson and Wright by probably me or Mike as the designee of the board. That can be done at any time. There is no time stipulation on that. Automatically, the contract ends in 6 months. So if we were going to extend beyond the 6 months, we'd have to have another vote to do that. But that would also be unlikely because that would mean that the budget wouldn't be approved. And I think it has to be approved in July. But having said that, if we were to decide tomorrow that we changed our minds, we could do that.
Hey, Mike, I got a question for you. Last time that we were capped off, I think it was last year for months or whatever, did they use all of the funds or was it under?
It was almost, sorry, it was under almost every month. When I went back and looked, that's why I was having such a difficult time. I talked with Gene and we were trying to remember what was the cap amount. And it was because they never reached it, the cap amount. I'm not saying
7,500 or something, I think.
Yeah. Yep. But they never reached it. And that's why I was going back through these invoices and I'm like, what is that number? Because I knew it was a round number, but they had never reached it. And I'm not sitting here to tell you either that they're not going to reach it here. But in the past, when we did this with them previously, they never reached that cap amount.
And did we get anything out of that last time?
I mean, directly or indirectly, I don't know. I mean,
I would say there certainly was action there, but I think it pretty much terminated when we severed relations with Pete and that group, that the activity in terms of towards legislation stopped probably last April because it didn't seem to be to our benefit as far as the settlement with the Ohio Department of Education. It didn't seem like that was going to help us in that decision.
Okay.
Now, did it help us? I do think it helped us because we've established, they maintained positive relations with legislators, and we have a very nice group of legislators that are willing to support Townsend Community School. So yes, I think we did as far as that kind of lobbying and support. Did we get a law passed that helped us? No. Not then. Are there any other questions or any other discussion? Hearing none, let's have the roll, please.
Mrs. Salee.
Jackie, say that again.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
Mrs. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Palomo.
Yes.
Mr. Edwards.
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes. Okay, motion carried. That was a good discussion, though. That's really smart of us to get all of that out and talk about it and to feel good about asking those kinds of questions. It's showing that we're responsible. And I think that's really important. So thank you for that. Having no other discussion or items of business, rather, is there a motion to adjourn? I'm sorry, Israel is past the time. I said, do you have a game tonight?
No, I canceled it. Actually,
Okay,
Steve wouldn't be here anymore if we had.
I kind of thought that, but I wanted to check. All right, very good. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Okay,
Second.
Israel moved. Very good. We'll have the roll, please.
Mr. Palomo.
Yes.
Mr. Edwards.
Yes.
Mrs. Grant.
Yeah.
Mrs. Solis,
Yes, she said,
Mrs. Smith.
yes. Thank you, everyone, for this meeting, and Jeff and Ryan and Steve and David for all the preparation. We really appreciate it.
Nice work, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Right.
Thank you.